Let's get to this Fauci clip because I want to play it because it's going to set up what Jennifer Van Laar and I are going to talk about in the next half hour. This is Rand Paul grilling Fauci on gain of function research. It's a few minutes long, but I want you to hear the whole thing because I think a lot of people are confused about what this gain of function thing is and why it's important. And Rand Paul lays out the whole thing. And then you listen to Fauci lie at the end. Jennifer's going to come on and talk about what a lie this is. All right, cue that up. Go ahead. Play that.
Government authorities, self-interested in continuing gain-of-function research, say there's nothing to see here. Gain-of-function research, as you know, is juicing up naturally occurring animal viruses to infect humans. To arrive at the truth, the U.S. government should admit that the Wuhan Virology Institute was experimenting to enhance the coronavirus's ability to infect humans. Juicing up superviruses is not new. Scientists in the U.S. have long known how to mutate animal viruses to infect humans. For years, Dr. Ralph Barrick, a virologist in the U.S., has been collaborating with Dr. Shi Zhengli of the Wuhan Virology Institute, sharing his discoveries about how to create superviruses. This gain-of-function research has been funded by the NIH. The collaboration between the U.S. and the Wuhan Virology Institute continues. Doctors Barrick and Shi worked together to insert bat virus spike protein into the backbone of the deadly SARS virus, and then use this man-made supervirus to infect human airway cells. Think about that for a moment. The SARS virus had a 15% mortality. We're fighting a pandemic that has about a 1% mortality. Can you imagine if a SARS virus that's been juiced up and had viral proteins added to it, to the spike protein, if that were released accidentally? Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain of function research in the Wuhan Institute.
Do they fund Dr. Barrick?
We do not fund.
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain of function research?
Dr. Barrett does not doing gain of function research, and if it is, it's according to the guidelines, and it is being conducted in North Carolina.
You don't think inserting
in
a bat virus spike protein that he got from the Wuhan Institute into the SARS virus is gain of function?
That is not.
You would be in the minority because at least 200 scientists have signed a statement from the Cambridge Working Group saying that it is gain of function.
Well, it is not. And if you look at the grant and you look at the progress reports, it is not gain of function, despite the fact that people tweet that.
So do you still support sending money to the Wuhan Virology Institute?
We do not send money now to the Wuhan Virology Institute.
Do you support sending money? We did under your tutelage. We were sending it through EcoHealth. It was a sub-agency and a sub-grant. Do you support the money from NIH that was going to the Wuhan Institute?
Let me explain to you why that was done. The SARS-CoV-1 originated in bats in China. It would have been irresponsible of us if we did not
stop it right there,
investigate.
You can hear him flip-flopping right there in the clip. You know, we didn't fund. Well, we did, but we weren't doing this. Well, we didn't work with the Wuhan lab. Well, we did, but it wasn't for this. I mean, this guy, I don't think Dr. Fauci has ever been asked to be held accountable for any of the decisions he's made. He's worked with such impunity. I think that'll ultimately be his downfall. And believe me, I'm going to explain in the next half hour how I do think Fauci's on his way out the door. I think this is all a setup for him to be the scapegoat because this has been a disastrous takeover of what President Trump started. And President Trump isn't clear and free from his poor handling, I think, of the PR around COVID, which probably led a lot to what we experienced in the 2020 election. But there you're watching Fauci flip-flop right in front of your eyes. So keep that in mind. And thank God for Rand Paul. Flip-flop Fauci is really doing a number on this country. And his very presence has exposed a lot of the lies that have been fed to us about this virus and about our response to the virus. And Red State has been breaking news on this left and right. We're not necessarily getting the credit for it because that would not behoove the mainstream media, but we've been breaking news left and right. One of the dogged reporters on this issue who has been digging and digging and digging for months is my boss and the managing editor at redstate.com, Jennifer Van Laar. She's going to talk to us about what's going on with Fauci. Jennifer, welcome to Tony Katz Today.
So great to be here, Kira.
All right, let's get into it. This is a big deal. I played the full, just before you came on, just before we went to break, I played the clip of Rand Paul grilling Fauci on gain of function research because I wanted it's a little confusing if you're not sure what the terms are. So I wanted the audience to understand why this is a big deal, because in the clip, Jennifer, Fauci outright lies to Rand Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and not only that, but as he's speaking, he's reversing his lies. I mean, it was just incredible. I mean, thank God for Rand Paul, right?
Exactly. That guy has been on this. He and Tom Cotton have really taken a lot of heat from the media and all of Fauci's fangirls about their questioning. They're supposed to accept what Fauci says, and I'm so glad they haven't.
Well, tell us why that this should matter to the average American, that Fauci is lying about gain of function. This might just seem to some people like, okay, this is just kind of bureaucratic speak, and what is the big deal? Whether he knew about gain of function or not, the virus is here. What is the big deal? Can you explain why people should really be concerned about this?
Yeah, and it is really difficult to understand. Steve Hilton had a great video last night, and I'm not sure if you've talked about that yet.
I haven't. He's on Fox News. Yep.
Okay. Yes. So I watched his piece, and it made me mad, but then I thought about it because my mom was sitting with me and another friend, and they were looking at me, why are you so mad? And it hit me that I was so mad because I've been following this, and I understood exactly what he was saying. But for people who hadn't already been following the story, they would think, what the heck is happening here? So gain of function research, and Fauci even talked about it in this video. It's things where you take a virus and you make it more transmissible, like something that maybe doesn't spread very fast or very easily. They mutate it manually so that it will, or they make it more pathogenic where it's going to do more damage to a person, or they do things called host range, alter the host range. So something that's maybe only in bats or horses or birds can now exist in humans. Jeez. So we've been doing research on these SARS viruses to do all of these things over the last 10 years or so. NIH has been funding this throughout the world, including at Wuhan. And there were 2 brand new SARS viruses created at Wuhan that couldn't have been in humans before, but after they engineered them, could infect humans, and specifically human airway epithelial cells. Those are the ones that have the little cilia in them that take anything that comes into your body and tries to get foreign things out. It's your first line of immune defense. So what happens when you don't have that? I think we all saw that for the last year.
That's terrifying. And what's more terrifying is the idea that, I mean, I would expect our government to be working on this kind of stuff. If somebody else is working on it, then we should definitely, it's kind of like, it's national security, right? You would expect that.
Exactly.
You wouldn't be expecting our government to be literally funding the research of our enemies to help strengthen their viral research and viral, all the messing around they're doing with the virus. I mean, I think what terrifies me about this, Jennifer, is China is our enemy. They are not our friends. They want to kill us. They want to end us. And Fauci saying that well, we're involved, but it's not that bad. I mean, it is that bad. We're talking about a virus, about our enemy creating a virus in the hopes of wiping out most of the population of Earth.
Right. And so there's 2 things with that. And so as far as SARS viruses particularly, we kind of have to play with China a little bit because mostly they originate in China in those caves and with bats and whatnot. So we have to get samples from them or somehow work with them to get the actual virus, because obviously we don't have them naturally here. But when we go to the point of partnering with them to do this gain of function stuff, where we know that any knowledge that's possessed by their scientists is going to be possessed by their military and used to our detriment, and we're going to pay for that. That's the problem. And the thing is that Fauci knew that this gain of function research had huge risks to it, not just a lab leak, but just creating biowarfare. And that, to the point that our government back in 2014 said, let's do a moratorium on paying for this until we have a good framework, until we have a lot of checks and balances to make sure that we don't create something that's going to kill all of us. And there was exact research going on with Dr. Shi at Wuhan that the government asked them to pause it, and Fauci gave them an exception and said, no, go ahead. Keep on going.
Do you suspect, what do you think is going on here? I know we have to be careful about making presumptions, but we are in the business of opining. And what do you suspect is going on here? Like, could it be, and I know you are too, and you've taught me this, but you always follow the money. I mean, if you have any questions and something doesn't make sense to you about what government is doing, you always follow the money. I mean, what is going on with Fauci here? Why is he lying about this?
Well, I think he's lying because he knew once this came out and they knew early on what this virus was, he went, oh, crap. And he knew that he had been funding this stuff when he wasn't supposed to be because, I think you and I and a couple of our writers at Red State had been talking privately about this. What was Fauci's motivation here? And public health wasn't a very sexy thing to look at as far as government bureaucrats until last year, right? So they had just kind of been flying under the radar, getting their billions of dollars to have all the research that they want to have done, and just not really telling anyone else about it. But then when this pandemic happened and really put a light on them, they went, oh, crap, we need to cover up what we've been doing here because, especially with Trump as president at that time, there would have been heads rolling.
And well, that's what's so crazy to me, though, because on the one hand, everything you just said made perfect sense. On the one hand, okay, they're like, oh, shoot, now we're in it. But on the other hand, Fauci's been on every magazine cover. He's been throwing out the first pitches at baseball games. I mean, Meghan McCain compared him to a Kardashian the other day. I mean, this guy is freaking everywhere. He's got a new book coming out, which pre-sales have been suspended now because suddenly Fauci is his star is falling now. But that's what's amazing to me. Maybe it's just, I don't know. What do you think? Like, maybe it's just the seduction of fame and power. But like, you would think that he would just kind of go quietly into the night and hope that people forget about him. And instead, he's just everywhere.
Right. So I think he's been able to get away with things for so long, been able to spin it, and eventually it just goes away. I have heard through various sources in my investigative reporting that Fauci's a bit of a narcissist, and then he gets all of this attention. Of course, that feeds the narcissistic monster. And they just, sorry, I just thought about another thing that I needed to add on this. So with Fauci, he's controlled all of these scientists because they control all the funding, right? So no one wants to offend Fauci. So in the email trove last week, there was a doctor from Scripps down near San Diego here in California that emailed him and said, hey, I'm afraid that this looks like it could be engineered. And Fauci basically said, call me, and then got him on the phone with this Peter Daszak from EcoHealth Alliance. And after that, suddenly this author was writing a whole paper about how it was not lab originated. So then yesterday, once this all started coming out, that doctor deleted his Twitter account.
Oh my gosh.
That it has some different things on it. Yeah. So Fauci controls a lot of stuff. He doesn't want to give that up.
Yeah. You know what? That makes sense. And I think that we underestimate how seductive power can be. And especially, as you said, Jennifer, when you're unaccountable, he makes twice or three times what the president makes a year. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think, true, people just kind of get addicted to the power, addicted to the attention. I think we saw the same thing happen with Cuomo in New York, right? Like he knew he had all this dirt underneath him, but it was like, well, people are praising me and I can't stop. I think, what do you think, Jennifer? I think that in hindsight is 2020, but I think the greatest mistakes that Trump made probably was not firing Fauci right away or sidelining him in some way. I think he knew he should have, and because there was an election, it might not have been politically expedient, but Fauci's been a disaster, and he's rained down suffering on this country because of his selfishness.
I agree. But, given what we've seen in all of the Fauci emails and then even the Daszak emails where he was basically strong-arming scientists into writing papers that it was not a lab leak, but basically saying, hey, that's some nice funding you have for that grant there. It would stink if it went away. I'm not sure if anyone would have come out and told Trump, anyone in the scientific community.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Well, okay, Jennifer, can you tell people where they can find more of your reporting? You guys have to follow Jennifer. Give them your Twitter account too, because I can tell you from personal experience, Jennifer is a dogged reporter, and she has been on this like white on rice. No offense, white people. So Jennifer, tell people where they can find you, and make sure you follow everything she does over at redstate.com.
Thank you. So I'm on Twitter at Jen Van Laar, VANLAAR, and of course at redstate.com you can find me and Kara, and Scott Hounsel has been doing major work on this too.
Yes, awesome. Okay, thank you so much for coming on the show, Jen, and I'll see you at the office.
Thank you.
All right, that was Jennifer Van Laar, managing editor for redstate.com. Pretty big stuff. We're going to take a break, and we will be back shortly. Don't go anywhere. I'm Kira Davis, filling in for Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today.